James, I love being a GM. Sometimes, just not working right. Things can go haywire quickly. I need to talk to more GMs. I need to learn what they know. I need to become faster, stronger. Today, my friend Fred Newman is sharing his wisdom with us. Join me, and together we can learn the secrets of your GM.
There's so much about GMing that a lot of people don't know, and the best way to find out is talking to people. You've been doing this for how long now?
27 years. When I looked at my script here, and I was like, man, I have been doing this a really long time. It wasn't until I actually stopped and thought about it, because when I first started playing games, there was no crew. I didn't have Find My People. It was like me and my buddy Jason running a really, really complicated kind of system called Palladium Games. Are you familiar at all?
No, I'm not.
Palladium Games is their big famous title is called Rifts.
Okay.
And Rifts is post-apocalyptic sci-fi interdimensional smash-up of all different kinds of genres and themes and elements.
Dude, that sounds cool. I would dig in.
Oh, it's pretty wild. Unfortunately, it's horrifically unbalanced. Its major claim to fame is a mechanic called mega damage. Let's say you've got like 100 hit points. 1 mega damage equals 100 hit points. One dude with a laser rifle just vaporize you.
So you're just going to get like one shot like a video game, basically.
Totally one shot like a video game, unless you've got some mega damage armor.
That's crazy. So like this character you've been working on for months, maybe years, one bad roll.
Yeah, you take your armor off, you get caught sleeping, maybe it's a vibro blade, and it does 1d4 mega damage. I roll a 2. That's 200 SDC or hit points. So, kind of crazy. SDC stands for structural damage capacity. So, before we got into Rifts, the thing that really got me started was a game called Robotech, also by Palladium Games. Robotech based off the anime that got imported from Japan that was originally Macross. Giant transforming robots on Toonami for a while, back when we were kids. But yeah, my folks picked that up for me. I was probably like 11 or 12. Christmas morning, and I open up this book, and it's got all these crazy mecha and art designs. I'm like, this right here, but it's pen and paper and dice. So like, I'm not going to play with my parents, and it doesn't have a board, but I got to find other people to play with, and that was always the challenge.
Did you end up finding anybody to play this with you? Like,
I co-opted my sister into it for a little while, and so that was okay. But it wasn't until I met my buddy Jason in middle school, and it was just me and him for the longest time until high school.
I think I've heard you mention Jason before. Like, you've been playing with him for ages.
Jason fell off the radar with me back in in high school. We kind of stopped gaming together, but that's when I discovered live action role play with Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, no.
Which was also, which is a book my buddy Ryan got for me, and I was reading this beautiful book, a second edition Vampire, and I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. But it talked about live action role playing, and I was like, this is something I want to do. This sounds super cool, And I found out that on the side of a comic book shop, about 10 minutes from my house, there was a game every Monday, and that really opened my doors to the world of gaming.
Would you say this is a good way just to find people to play with? Just go to your game shop? Is that
absolutely? The local comic book shop is still a great nexus point to meet people, and then especially if you get into any kind of larger like live action type game, you're going to run into other tabletop players, and then you can start meeting and socializing with other gamers, finding the ones that you want to play with on a regular basis, and kind of filter out the people that you don't.
You see, I've always been kind of intimidated by the comic book shops for some reason. I mean, I think maybe because I still don't have the background, the oh man,
The pedigree.
oh, I know it, like, I know somebody who has 3rd edition this or that. And,
Never be intimidated by a bunch of nerds. Just a bunch of nerds.
well, I hate walking into a situation where I don't have the knowledge. You know what I mean?
I understand.
I like knowing what I'm walking into. It's just like, be prepared. Know this, know that. And just like, I like your word earlier, panoply.
Pedigree, yeah.
Oh,
the pedigree.
Pedigree works too, but I was thinking there's a panoply of just all different kinds of cool things.
Oh, yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent description, yeah.
It's just, you can't know it all. And...
No.
Nor
do you want to. There's some wacky stuff out there. For example,
yes.
I like to think I do pretty well for myself, but I don't do well enough for myself to pick up Warhammer 40K and start that crack addiction. No offense to the Warhammer 40K gamers out there, but how do you guys do it? Oh my goodness!
It looks like, honestly, like from some of the gameplay that I watch online, it looks like a lot of fun. But
it does. It certainly does.
Wow!
Really, what an investment.
Yeah, investment, time, energy. I mean, like, holy cow. I mean, the rule set in it was, wow.
Massive and ever-changing.
Massive.
And ever-changing. So there's new additions every few years, and how do you keep up with something like that? That takes a lot of passion, and unfortunately, at this stage of the game, I'm not it for that. It's the same thing with collectible card games. Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! All of those things are happening at the comic book shop. There's just so many different genres and flavors of game to get into. It really is what strikes your fancy.
Oh, yeah. How was your first game, really? How'd you get pushed into being a GM, and how'd that turn out for you? Was it okay? Was it meh? Or...
Me and Jason had no idea what the heck we were doing. We saw a bunch of cool pictures and cool statistics, but Palladium games, the Rifts and Robotech systems, it's like you have to really improvise and interpret a lot to actually understand what they were. So really what it came down to was a lot of role play and a lot of, okay, this mech has this high of SDC or MDC, and let's just roll some dice. And we didn't even roll 20-sided dice at first. We didn't figure out, we're actually supposed to roll the hit. It was just damage. Yeah, hit it, kill it. Shoot some missiles. Auto cannons, let's do it.
When you're starting out, as long as you're having fun, everybody's on the same page, really. In my opinion, that's the important thing.
Oh yeah, we were super into the military drama of the setting and stuff like that, but it just gradually would progress to being 13, 14, and 15-year-old boys playing a game, silly slapstick, random funny stuff that was just made us laugh and entertained us. That was kind of the first tentative steps into GMing and DMing. Mm-hmm. I actually didn't get a chance to start really in earnest playing and dungeon mastering. I was a teenager until I was about 18 or 19 years old. I picked up 3.0 D&D. It came out in 2000, same year that I graduated in, and I fell in love. My parents were so anti D&D, like the Satanic Panic, totally bought into that nonsense, and they're not religious people, but they believed in the hype that this was a dangerous thing, and it was people were getting killed over it, and they literally, had they known that I was practicing so much math and interpersonal skills and communication and statistics and reading comprehension, like it was very good for supplementing my education. And had they known those benefits, they probably would have been pushing me towards that instead of yanking me away from it.
I hear you. I mean, if nothing else, it gives somebody who may be socially awkward in situations an outlet to, well, hey, there's no reason. There's just the 5 of us here. We're playing a game. We're having a good time. Who cares? Be who you are.
Make you feel comfortable with who you are.
And the math.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Right.
I was terrible in math in elementary school. It took me ages. It wasn't until college that I actually started understanding things like XY coordinates and negative numbers and curve of the line and all that kind of stuff. And it was only because I had been playing D&D so much and I had a great tutor that I actually caught up. I didn't really get it until college, which is kind of astounding, but that was always a gap in my knowledge base. But D&D helped sharpen that sharpen that skill.
What I like about GMing is you get to learn about storytelling. And man, ad lib. I mean, holy cow. I mean, if you want an improv lesson, have 5 guys or gals or, anybody sitting in front of you expecting to be entertained for 3 hours straight. I mean,
James, orc bartender, what's his name? What does he look like? Orc bartender, what's his name? What does he look like? There's an orc bartender.
Zagdar, he has an eye patch, and one of his legs is a little bit gammy, so he walks with a limp.
See, that kind of stuff. It's like you get thrown a curveball. Some DMs get so wrapped up in the railroad, this grandiose vision that they have for their campaign. You need to head into the crypts and slay the Lich. Well, Jamie the Halfling Bard wants to go to the shopkeeper and buy some poultices and a raccoon. And now you need to meet Jamie's request.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have anything about shopkeepers and raccoons.
It's like, do you find a raccoon? Roll.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Trash pandas.
There you go. Honestly, I find that's the best use for dice. Is I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Certainly gives you the ability to pause the action for a moment and collect your thoughts, and
gives you at least that time to I have no idea.
Charge your batteries. Let me tell you an embarrassing Dungeons and Dragons story, okay? This is my first time I ever sat down and played D&D. It was a Saturday morning. I was at the comic book store, and I met a group, and they're like, "You've never played D&D before?" I'm like, "Never. I've always wanted to." They're like, "Sit down. We'll totally get you involved." And I rolled up a Keganesti elf ranger named Oakenshield because, all right, I remember it because it was my first. And I'm playing Oakenshield. I'm having a real good time. I'm cruising through the forest. I'm knocking arrows, putting them through goblin heads. And oh shit, it's time for me to go to work. I'm working as a busboy at a Mexican restaurant. I'm 15 years old. My parents always go to this Mexican restaurant. And I'm like, I'm playing D&D. So I call off. I had never called off work before. My parents decided to go to that Mexican restaurant that night to go see me, like they always typically did. They find out I'm not at work. They guess where I'm at, and they come embarrass the shit out of me in front of my new group of gaming friends, tell me I'm never allowed to play D&D again, and make me go to work.
Wow. Oh, man.
I still remember between my $2.13 an hour and tips, I made about $36 that evening, and I much would have rather playing D&D. I always found it strange that they were way more comfortable with me playing Vampire the Masquerade than Dungeons & Dragons.
That's so wild.
I wasn't, as an 18-year-old, they did not want me to have my 3.0 player's handbook in the house. That upset them that I had it. Oh. But they had bought me a Palladium fantasy book. And I was just like, this actually has demon summoning circles and stuff drawn in it. Like, here's Fireball, roll C-Dis, 1d6 damage per level. And I always was like, have you ever actually opened this book and looked at it? Or are you just afraid of it because of the name? So, funny stuff.
Question. There was a movie a while back. What was that called? Darkest Dungeons or something like that?
Monsters and Mazes with Tom Hanks.
Monsters and Mazes?
I believe that's what it was called, Monsters and Mazes. Monsters and Mazes with Tom Hanks.
I don't think I know that one. I remember seeing Darkest Dungeon. Don't quote me, right? But it was about these. It's really bad. Like it's, man, we're talking B movie style. Really pretty bad. And what was it? It was like these people that had just gone to college, and then they join a Dungeons and Dragons group, and then they get put in this big cult kind of thing. It's really. No,
I saw the LARP version of that. It was called Wild Hunt, and that was like on Netflix like 10 years ago. But it was basically the LARP that gets out of control. That was kind of the same sort of theme.
I tell you what, popular sentiment has really changed quite a bit from those days. I'm so thankful for all these YouTube videos and things like that just coming out and showing what people are actually doing, where it's usually
we're in a gaming renaissance
Yeah.
right now. This is a gaming renaissance that we're experiencing, and it breaks my heart that I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, and not like in college or somewhere where I have access to my friends where I can play D&D. I mean, we had such good times at the White House with our semi-regular games, you know,
Oh yeah.
between you and I switching off, and you know, it's terrible because some people that would have never given the game a try are playing now. You know,
Yeah.
it's really is something else. But I am struggling to find a group down here, or at least, you know, find time to find a group. The online seems to be the safe way to do things, and right now I have one pretty much weekly online game I do on Monday night, and that's it, because it's an important part, you know, of our recreation and what's fun for us, what we like to do.
It's an important way to socialize, really, too. I mean, you're making stories not by yourself. You're making it together. And, you know, I think that's one thing GMs really need to remember. It's not your story. It's our story. It's everyone together.
It is. It's a collaborative storytelling exercise. Being playing D&D or any other role-playing game is a collaborative storytelling exercise, and you as the GM are kind of responsible not for the plot and the trajectory of the game and like all that stuff. Throw it out the window. What's important is that you're entertaining your friends.
Yeah.
And that you're entertained as well during that time. You know, my favorite memories of D&D, I couldn't recount really in character stories. There's just have so many. You know, it's been damn near 30 years. You know, but what always was joyful to me was after the game was over, people wanted to hang out, have drinks, talk about what happened, strategize for the next game, tell stories. That's when you know that's a metric of success.
One thing I like to do before my games is to ask the players what happened last time. And for that, for me, that's showing me what they remembered about the game. So that gives me pointers of what I need to do better. You know, just like, hey,
absolutely,
they picked up on that. It's time to focus more on the.
It primes the pump, essentially. You know, it also helps draw them back into that suspension of disbelief that brings them into your game world. They start thinking like their character instead of thinking like themselves, and that shift, that mental shift, is super important for getting involved in the game. You know, if you can't make that shift, you're typically not having a good time. You're not enjoying yourself.
You're absolutely right. And one thing I always have to remind myself is some days it's just like, oh man, I gotta do this. And when you're feeling like that, it's time not to do it. Really, I know that.
Yeah, it's time to take a break. If you're feeling any kind of burnout, hesitancy, or like you're slamming your head against the wall trying to come up with stuff, it's time to either refill the well by reading some great stories or experiencing some different medium, finding your muse again. If you're just punching it hard on being creative, you're going to put out substandard stuff that you're not going to enjoy.
Do you know what actually works for me?
What's that?
Watching awful, terrible, and sometimes great 80s movies. I watched Die Hard, and I don't know why, but I was ready. I'm just like, oh man, how can I make this happen? I want a John McClane. Somebody give me a John McClane.
Yeah, it pulls you back into the mindset for generating encounters. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like what was dynamic and interesting about that thing that happened in the movie that I could recreate in a D&D setting. You know, like watching Black Sails recently. It's like, oh, I got some great ideas for some ship encounters, or watching Aliens. Oh, this gives me a great idea for a persistent monsters coming, and it's kind of a fighting retreat scenario. Like, drawing that inspiration is really important. And if you lose your muse, it is definitely time to take a break.
I've heard like stories about people railroading and things like that. I think that's the big difference is what you're saying about getting a muse and not copying. You know,
I'm going to spill some hot tea here, James. The thing that I don't really like about 5th edition D&D is in 3.5, you got campaign settings. And campaign settings was like, it's ammunition for your storytelling gun. In 5th edition, a lot of the books are like, well, here's the entire game and encounter. Like, you play Dragon Heist and I play Dragon Heist. We're going to have a very similar experience because it's all pretty much written out how the encounters are supposed to go. And like, yeah, there's some branching points. We could do some things differently, but it's more of a video game than a improvisational exercise on the DM's part. It's a lot less work for the DM, which I think is great. But at the same time, I think we're losing something by being so invested in those books.
So
as lovely as they are.
What do you think we're losing, really?
Well, I think that we're not creating things from whole cloth in the settings that have been presented, because the different campaign settings kind of had books and literature, and sometimes, if we were fortunate, video games and movies where we could draw some ideas, themes, and concepts from, but not wholesale copy, as opposed to being literally kind of given the script and kind of like, okay, well, now we got to goad our characters back into the script because they've decided to go shop for raccoons.
Yes. Well, that's fair enough. Well, honestly, I gotta admit, that's kind of why I kind of steer clear of, what would you even call them, modules?
But most of the D&D books they put out are module-based books, as opposed to like rote campaign settings. For example, on the horizon, we've got that Frostrime book that's coming out, which looks Icewind Dale, and I played Icewind Dale.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of people have. It was super great. 10 towns.
Yeah, seriously, it scratched the Baldur's Gate itch when we knew we weren't going to get another Baldur's Gate for a long time. Really.
Absolutely, it was fantastic. However, like as much as I enjoy, hey, we got this Icewind Dale book coming out. We've got like Dragon Heist. We've got these books that take place in the Forgotten Realms. Yeah. Just give me a Forgotten Realms campaign setting and let me do my thing, but I don't need to buy a 3.5 Forgotten Realms campaign setting again because I already have it. And unless they move the timetable forward and there's a bunch of changes, the realms is the realms is the realms, right?
I do like a lot of the resources online too. I know I do most of my research. I look through the Sword Coast Adventure Guide whenever I do a Faerun campaign, but even that is lacking sometimes, and it's nice to get the history from 3 and like sometimes 2. I mean, you can have those black and white the black and white drawings and whatnot in there, and of course 3.5. I almost wonder if they got so deep with the other versions that they're wondering, do we have to do this again? I don't know.
Well, it harkens back to 2nd edition, because that's how they were published in 2nd edition. They were pre-published adventures that you would buy, usually in much smaller bite-sized chunks. And now, instead of smaller bite-sized chunks, it's like, okay, well, here's a big, long adventure that might take you from 5th to 20th level, plus all the sourcebook stuff that you guys love anyway, your extra warlock packs and your extra, fighter subclasses, and it's a tantalizing thing, to be like, okay, well, I want to follow the what I like to call power creep. Because there's, if you limit your players to the 5th edition Player's Handbook, they're going to make all the selections out of that one book, and you'll know what you're dealing with. But if you're like, well, all the books are available, including the ones to the setting, a lot of times the extra stuff that comes out later might be just a little bit powerful, or might synergize with something in the first book and be a little bit stronger than might have been intended for the character to have. It's that power creep, that you got to keep an eye on as a DM.
Guilty. I am the kind of guy that says, hey, what's this new thing? Oh boy, look at the books.
Why would you want to be suboptimal? Well,
yes. Well, I'm not saying suboptimal. It's just new.
It's new and shiny.
Ooh,
but some players will be, they're there to explore, or they're there to solve puzzles, or they just really like to be dramatic, and it's a theatrical exercise for them. And then there's people that are just complete and utter power gamers that just want to be completely optimal at all times, do the most damage, take the tightest turn, and be as effective as possible because that is their win condition.
you need to know your audience. The audience of those 5 people in front of you. And each one of those things is not bad.
Correct.
If you have a bunch of guys that are min-maxing everything and they want to go and they roll stuff, roll some higher monsters. I mean, just go ahead and get in there and just
playing to your audience is so important because circling back to the original point was we're there to facilitate fun. We're there to entertain our players and find some entertainment ourselves in creating that experience. But definitely you got to know who you're playing when you're picking the campaign setting, when you're picking the adventure, writing it, and what their expectations are. That's huge.
I tend to go more goofy. It's just who I am. I can't stop it. As long as my players know, I'm probably not going to go high fantasy on this one, ever. I think that's okay.
I think your average gamer gets their overdose of melodrama from consuming other media, Final Fantasy or Lord of the Rings, or a lot of the movies and books and television takes it so seriously that it's it can be a bummer, It's there are some topics around a table that I just don't like to go towards, and it's stuff that makes people feel uncomfortable, and maybe it's edgy, or it might be historically, more correct, but is it fun or interesting or dynamic? Does it add anything to what you're doing? Does it make people uncomfortable?
And that's
out the airlock.
That's actually a fantastic point. Does it add anything? Is it just a waste of your time? Will it add anything? And that's a solid point. I mean, will it add anything? Are you wasting your effort making this huge melodrama when that's not what your players want?
No, they're not. A lot of times they're not there for that, or the people that we play with at least.
Well, that's us.
And the people nowadays have a nowadays. Oh boy, listen.
Dude, that's what
some folks are they have some bigger sensitivities to different things. What? And I would rather have an inclusive table that's enjoying itself as opposed to strive for historical accuracy or be more gritty and realistic and edgy. No, the point is fun. Fun is the purpose of the exercise.
That is exactly it. The purpose.
So what's wrong with being goofy? Goofy is super important. Some levity and interjecting some comedy into things. We're there to have a good time.
As long as it's fun. Really. That's the thing. As long as it's fun. Really.
And you can drop in things that are more serious and heavy, but you have what it's termed as a fade to black kind of a moment. It's then they find out about the death of their child, and there's a long conversation about that in fade to black, and the next day, blah blah blah. You don't need to make an emphasis on that. Maybe it's a point in the plot of something that happened, but we don't need to hyper focus and go through the stages of grief and the psychodrama of dealing with the death of a child. That's not something that I'm trying to do when I'm playing D&D.
Yeah. No, I want to have fun. I want to have fun with my friends,
Exactly.
Or even just perfect strangers who I don't want to stress out, But
a new might be crafting an adventure or an experience, and they want to recreate a movie and the emotions that they felt, and they might be coming at their creation from a pure place. And they might inject some of those themes and thematic elements and really upset their players and maybe not make them want to play again. So it's important to realize there's an imbalance when you're creating something from a pure place and tailoring it to who plays in your game.
That sounds like a really good way to railroad your players too, if you don't mind me saying. And that's it's a dangerous thing.
It is, and the thing is with railroading, ultimately we are creating an illusion of choice. There's certainly a way we kind of want things to go, and Yeah, sometimes we'll go to the extremes to let them explore those divergent pathways and be like, okay, well, you go and buy the raccoon, and then maybe you're going to go to the Street of Red Lanterns and see a lady of the evening, and maybe then you're going to go to the potion shop and then go gabbling. Like, sure, you can divert from things, but ultimately there is a direction that we want them to go.
Yeah.
But the trick of it all is making them enticed to go that way.
You're 100% right. Well, that's one thing that's actually very important. Since I like to play with minis, and I can't make every single scene in the world, I have to either find a way to either I throw right off the bat. That's easy, right? That's the only time you're in control as a GM, when you're right at the beginning, right?
Absolutely. When you're setting the stage.
Yeah. Either you throw it right at the beginning, or you have to have some sort of point where divergent paths intersect into one area, and then they can diverge wherever they want. Trying to make it flow well. That's it.
Yes. And you can let the players explore and go outside the boundaries and even go off on tangents. A lot of times that's a lot of fun. And honestly, when I start experiencing a lot of burnout, or they get through what I had created for them to experience that session, I really encourage that kind of play, because I can improv, and when they get some spotlight me time, that enhances their mental investment and emotional investment in their character and the experience. So when I'm doing game prep, what I like to do is I have a notebook, and I will write out chapters to like a story. The group gets on the high seas. Torches are lit and they descend into the Underdark. They happen across a manticore and its cubs. I write chapter heads, and then I sort of expound and kind of set the additional stage with those loose guiding principles. Those chapter heads I also assign an encounter level to. In 3.5, it kind of specifically says every 14 encounters, you're supposed to gain a level. So like 14 significant encounters where it's a challenge level equal to what your players should be experiencing. That's kind of like a guideline that I go by. I lay the bones of and the skeleton out, and then the players kind of put the flesh on it based on their choices, actions, and decisions.
I gotta say, Fred, I think that you run some really balanced encounters. I've seen you kill one character before, and I don't even think that was unwarranted, really.
No, and
And honestly, you probably should have killed me a few times, to be honest with you.
Pardon the old phrase, but you give your players enough rope to hang themselves.
Yeah, fair enough.
But like something, perhaps this very sentence tells you that this is a bad idea. You've heard me say that before, right?
Yes.
Yeah, something perhaps this very sentence tells you that this is a bad idea. Oh. And then if they go ahead and continue, it's like, sure, I'll give them a shot. And other players are going to use their agency. And we'll come back to that word agency, because it's super important with what we're talking about today. To save that person and bring them back, either through a resurrection or a well-timed heal spell or a potion down the throat or whatever they need to do. But there are, I like to set up challenging encounters that if you think about and if you're prepared for, you can use your player agency, your skill set, and your character sheet to outwit it. And most of the time, I think you're gonna meet that challenge. I don't relish in setting up people to fail. Challenging, yes, but I don't take any delight in watching players bash their head up against the wall and become frustrated. And
I find it's just as frustrating. Honestly, when they're frustrated, I get frustrated myself, and really, we're not here for that.
No, and I enjoy puzzles to an extent and riddles to an extent. However, if you pick something that's so obscure and so difficult that it's going to take up a half of your session of them sliding blocks or jumping through hoops, did you play D&D? Were you really? I mean,
yeah. That's
especially for people that are interested in doing that.
One of my favorite encounters that I remember you running I was playing as a barbarian. I climbed up a cave into, I think it was something silly. It was like a goblin den. But I really liked the way you played all the goblins, really. And I was watching you to see how you ran the goblins at the time. Because I think the biggest difficulty I had when I was starting out was how to run mobs. You know, do you roll them separately? Should I have them attack differently? I mean, like, what do you find is the best way to go?
Honestly, the magic number is 2.
Yeah, I'm with you.
If you put 2 things on a person, it puts pressure on them, but there's instant gratification when they eliminate one of those targets.
Yeah.
Instant gratification. It goes from I'm in danger to, oh, maybe I've got this. Maybe I can do this. Like that's super empowering, and it's thrilling, and it helps get them into the mindset to complete the encounter, and not give up. Essentially, to become overwhelmed and then start getting depressed and anxious and start getting all those negative vibes that we talked about earlier that kind of spiral into not having a good time. And then if things are too easy, well, maybe it's 3.
Yeah,
or
there you go.
You increase the level. And it's also important from time to time to throw in a laughably easy encounter, just to show them how much agency and power their characters amassed at this point.
That's a good point. Making sure that your players feel powerful. You are the GM. You have ultimate power. There is.
Until they get up and leave.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, like, you have complete power in the game, right? You don't need to lord it over it. You want to make other people feel strong. Make them feel powerful.
This is a pretty good segue into the topic of agency.
Sure.
So, as a professional, I do health and safety for a demolition company. All right? I'm a college graduate. I'm a father, first son of a family. I've got a lot of agency in my life that I derive both prestige and satisfaction and happiness from. Gaming, a gaming character is an escape. It can empower you, but not everybody has my agency in life. Some people, all they have is their gaming group, their society for creating anachronisms, and there's nothing wrong with those things. But when you are disempowered, even in your fantasy life, that it's painful. It's a visceral experience. It's something that you take personal, and that's really a challenging thing as a GM DM to handle, is people taking in-game things out of game and very, very personal.
Yeah, that's no joke, man. That draws into the drama. How do you handle your drama at your table? Because I know that a lot of people, even other games I've played in, there's drama at the table. This person is refusing to talk to this other person. You know what I mean? Sometimes people are a bad fit, and sometimes things happen outside of game. And although you're friends with both of those people, they can't get along. Breakups, for example, are a huge one. So the boyfriend plays and the girlfriend plays, and they're both really good friends of yours, but they don't want to play with each other anymore. But they both want to play the game. Yeah. What do you do? That's a big question. There's no simple answer.
No, it's not any fun. And what you have to do is it's a cost benefit analysis. Is what do they bring to the table? It's like are they mentally invested? Do they do a key role in the game? Do they want to play just so the other person can't play? Oh yeah. There's some petty stuff that happens, and especially in live action role playing. Holy crap, but around a D&D table, typically everybody's friends and families, and you can get along, and people also tend to come and go. Your long-term D&D group that stays together for an entire 2, 3, 4-year campaign, that's few and far between. Because we're fighting our personal burnout as DMs, but people's lives and experiences and priorities change all the time. People move, people have children, people get involved with other hobbies and activities, and they get burned out just like we do. So people typically will cycle out. It's very rare a core group can stay together, and if you're in that situation, hold on to that. It's an amazing thing.
And have fun while you're doing it. Really, I mean,
absolutely.
Because life will catch up with you.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And then years down the road, or months down the road, you can find yourselves all playing together again.
Yes.
On the 5th of July, my buddies from after high school, we're all playing on the 5th of July. People I've known for 15, 20 years, characters that are kind of iterations of old characters that we've had. It's great. So
that's awesome, man.
Don't give up on them.
Well, that's the best part. It's also an icebreaker, I'm sure, too, because that's a long time, man. Holy cow. I mean, how do you feel about them jumping back into this?
Yeah, they're thrilled, and they're the same people that you left them, and maybe they've had some life experiences, and they've gotten better at a few things, but ultimately, lovers don't change their spots. They're the same people they were when you left them. Yeah. But it's a privilege when that happens. My first D&D group, I was very lucky with. It was me and my friend Jamie, right out of high school, 18 years old. I was running a 2nd edition Dark Sun campaign that I had converted to 3.0 D&D.
Oh, really?
And I ran this game for about 3.5 years. And then he ran a homebrew machine game that he built himself, his own system that we're still using an iteration of to this day. And every Sunday we flip roles. It is it's his game. It's also thousands of years after when we last played. So the world's gone through a cataclysm, and there's traces of maybe some of the amazing things that our characters did in the past. But we're whole new people. And we're on a different continent than we were when we played it last. So it's iterative, but it rhymes with what we used to play, which is super cool.
I see what you're saying. You get together, you goof around, there you go, right? It's just friends hanging out, really.
Yeah, and I went for a gunslinger type of character, which is not something you get an opportunity to play in most fantasy games. So as a GM, part of our job is to create scenarios in which our players can use their agency in the game and have as much effect to your world and the story as possible, because it's their story and their world at the end of the day. And when we, actively work against that or deny it, we're creating a bad time. It's we want to let them flex those muscles and use those skills and use their powers. And one of the chief violations of player agency, in my personal opinion, is the GM God character. I find a sideways to do it, because I definitely enjoy having GM characters travel along with my players. But
I know you always do. Which I appreciate.
And it's always a good thing to make them pathetically incompetent next to your players, either 2 to 3 levels lower, or maybe you throw a 3.5 factotum who's a jack of all trades in that can answer lots of book questions, but might be able to get a cure light wounds off at the right time, but certainly isn't going to summon a chaos storm and save the day, or raise a character from the dead, or so.
I like that one character you had that would cook for everybody at camp. It's such a simple thing, right? But it's a part of all the little scribblings you have to do at the bottom of your page. It's all, don't even worry about it, right? Let's just have fun. This guy's cooking, he's carrying all our gear, doesn't even matter, right? You go do your thing, he's got it.
So if you want to play a campaign setting like Dark Sun, where water is as precious as diamonds.
Yes.
And metal is ultra rare, and you're stabbing each other with obsidian and bone weapons, and you're having to calculate rations and how much water you're carrying and how can you carry it and how much are your mounts drinking, and like everything is an exercise in survival. And if your players are bought into that experience, you're going to have a good time. But if I'm talking to, your players leave to go look for a crypt or a dungeon to go for a delve, and 2 days out into the wilderness, you're like, everybody's starving.
Yeah.
Did you bring enough water? You haven't calculated your weight ratios properly, and you're actually suffering back injuries, and they're going to be taking 17 points of subdual damage. Like, that's no fun.
No.
Come on. That's not what they signed up for. They're there to Indiana Jones rope down at the mouth of the cave and go kick it open the door and get the treasure. They're not there to calculate weight ratios and pull lift drags and cross off ration boxes off their character sheet. So if you can create an NPC that kind of provides that, or even just someone who builds the campfire and feeds the horses, and someone to talk to it in the evening, ask questions about what do you think about X. That's fun for me as a GM.
You're absolutely right. If they're expecting a good berries not allowed, like we have to find our own food, that kind of thing, maybe keep away from that. But if it's tailored to what your story is and what your people are expecting, it's fantastic.
Absolutely, like survival D&D. It's like I know you're a big fan of Fallout 4.
I love it.
And there's survival mode that you can click on where you have to like keep the Rad X and keep drinking so much and finding food, and like that can be a dynamic, fun part of the game. But does your players have been playing for 3.5 months really want to spend their time doing that, or do they want to be killing goblins and getting treasure?
There you go. That's exactly it.
So yeah, the DM God characters, as tempting as it is, you just chuck them out the airlock. It's not going to be fun for anybody. Nobody's going to enjoy watching the gameplay itself. Like, cutscenes are great for Final Fantasy. They're not great for D&D.
Oh, I'm with you. If your characters are stronger than your players, have them fight your players. I mean, like, really, in my opinion. Don't make them on the same side, because that just gets really boring. Really. For everybody.
It's the same thing with oh yeah, for sure. And it's the same thing for dynamic villains.
Yeah.
Like, villains should have purpose. It's like, unless they're like a demon or a chaos entity or something like that, like, they have their own wants, hopes, desires, objectives that they're trying to obtain. And you got to flesh them out. You got to make them dynamic and interesting. To have weaknesses and pitiable points, to give your characters those moral quandaries and questions. It's more realistic. It makes them more invested. I mean, you don't have to go off the wall crazy with it, but it's just something to sprinkle in. Make your enemy encounters and your enemy design as dynamic as your player characters.
I remember the campaign that I ran with you, and of course a lot of our other friends. I was so enamored because you guys took the bad guy that I was going to have be a bad guy, and you made him your ally, and you guys spawned an entire city dedicated to monster equal rights and things like that. It was, I mean, like, I was able to run with it. I was having so much fun. I mean, like,
yeah, we had all that too.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you guys decided on a course, and the bad guy was, I don't even want to compliment myself by saying multi-dimensional. I don't know, right? But either way, you took it upon yourselves, and then we made an entire story that was totally different.
That orc grew a third dimension.
It was
because we gave it to him, and that's what it's all about, James. It's we lay out the skeletons as DMs and GMs, and the players, they put the flesh, blood, and bone onto the bones, and they finish the job for us. They make it. They bring the environment and the characters to life through their mental and emotional investment in the activity.
And because of you guys, I had so much fun just going ahead and man, that was a good time. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. Have players ever done anything at your table that was just no, you can't.
Walk through a prismatic wall and roll 20s on every save.
Really?
I had to walk him outside and let him know that not only did I see him cheating, other people saw that he was cheating, and that we weren't interested in playing with him anymore. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I had persuaded the other players that, not to PvP, not to have inter-character violence, because it was ending soon anyway. And just suffer it. This is his first experience. This is his first major RPG character that he's ever had, so there's an attachment to it. And they did me the favor of putting up with it for almost a year.
Really?
Just him,
Wow.
him kind of, he not outright cheating like that, but just being hostile and edgy. And he didn't pick up on social cues very well. And you're gonna run into that frequently in D&D. Some people just do not have the social intelligence to necessarily know how to get along with everybody else at the table and not make the experience just about them. There's an unwritten rule that when you write a D&D character, you are there to participate in a collaborative experience, and that you make a character that can work well with and within the structure of a party. You need a villain. I'm sorry, you don't want to roll you up the character to be an asshat and a villain and give everybody a hard time and make the game not fun.
Seriously.
Except for them.
That just gets so tedious too. It slows everything down.
It's selfish on their part for ruining the game, essentially. Everybody's not having fun with that. You can even make an evil character that can function within a party.
And
it's just
I love a diverse evil on this, evil, good, just a whole spectrum of everybody. Oh man, I love it, right?
I got an Infernal Pact Tiefling that I play in your game who's neutral evil. And
you have a paladin, and we have a paladin that plays just fine with you.
Exactly, because it's his party is first. His people come first.
Yeah,
he's selfish about his party and their well-being, because they take care of him and make him rich and powerful. Why would he ever betray them when they do nothing but help and benefit him in his existence?
Yeah.
If you can make a character, and even an evil one, that can function within a party, play along, and collaborate, then you're doing okay, I think.
And it can be really fun, really. Just make something just ridiculous. But then again, I like ridiculous, so...
Yeah, no, it works.
Some
of my most beloved characters, chaotic evil, but they're to the rest of the world. But to my party, I love these guys.
Yeah,
these are my
guys.
This is the gang.
Yeah. But I like that you took him outside and you talked to him. Because I think that communication is key. I think the biggest problem at the table is unsaid expectations. And if you're having a problem with something, or it needs to be talked about, not just, oh, I don't know, oh, he's just like that, oh, this and that and the other thing, right?
Oh, he cried.
Communication.
So that was intense. It was intense, And I told him, look, I like you. You're a good dude. We're gonna keep playing games, But this group is not for you. Things have gotten to the hostile breaking point, and it's already a game that has 15, 16 players in it. Because
what? That's crazy.
Late bloomer. I didn't start junior college anyway, until I was 23 years old.
That's okay.
I got started very, very late.
No problem with that.
Yeah, no, it's no big deal. But I get to college, and I have been hardcore playing D&D weekly for 5 years at that point. And I meet all these guys. They're 18, 19, 20. They've never played D&D before. They might have played Final Fantasy or Elder Scrolls or games on the computer, or World of Warcraft, but they've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons. So I got to teach them both my style and set the expectations for what the game was going to be about, like the 15-second rule, which I've noticed you've kind of adopted too.
What's that?
For taking turns, 15-second turns, where you don't hem and haw for a minute and 30 seconds once it comes to your initiative.
Just come on, guys.
Yeah, you take a tight turn, and you can go. You can keep it rolling even with 18 people.
Wow, I honestly can't imagine. doing that with 18 people, to be honest with you.
Started off with
I had trouble with 7. I mean, like 7, 8, that's a lot to me. But
we started off with 7, and people just kept wanting to play. And we played in the common area of the dorm, and there were all these tables, and more like 4-person tables kept getting added until we had this big, long conference table with 16 people, eventually 18 people sitting around it.
Jeez.
And some people came, and some people went, but it stayed pretty consistent. It was a blast. It was so much fun.
There you go.
There's a little bit of math that's involved when coming up with encounters for groups that are that big. But when you have that many egos at a table and that many people trying to make the decisions and steer the ship, like they entertain themselves to an extent too. And I'm sure you probably run into that, right?
Oh, every once in a while. My favorite thing to do, throw something weird out there and then just shut up and fade away. See what happens. I mean, like,
what is this boot?
It's like,
what is this shoe that we're in?
Yes.
How did we get in this shoe?
It's just like, don't say anything. Just let it go, right? Just like, what are they gonna do? Just like
alluding to your first game, the boot, to viewers.
Oh, that's from the news campaign. Yeah.
That's the proverbial boot I'm talking about. But yeah, just watching them how they interact with an unknown or a mysterious thing. Sure.
Yeah.
But they can keep themselves quite entertained, so that you're not just chucking Tarrasques and dragons at them in order to keep them occupied and utilizing their skills and spells and abilities.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, a Tarrasque would totally work out for an 18 people party. Wow.
Now, it depends on their level, but eventually it was a lot of handcrafting NPCs with levels that in numbers that could engage them with some notes. So like, hey, this is what this character is going to do like the first 5 turns. You'll notice in D&D, typically encounters don't go the distance. An average combat isn't going to go over 10 rounds. Very rarely do they make it past 3 or 4, in my personal experience.
It's something I had to learn when dealing with mobs, even in video games. I never use my health potions. Oh, I need to save my spells. I need to do this. I need to do that.
I hate one-use items. They make me crazy.
Dude, seriously. They just sit there forever. When you're playing your mobs, just throw it out there because you may not get another chance. Really. That's
right. Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, they really put out some great books. The monsters manuals and the DMG. Sit down and read them. Really just read them and how order and structure encounters and award experience and treasure, and there's some really wonderful and great insight that are in those books. It's not just for the tables that are in them. Pick up the book and read the book. They're great. You're going to learn a shit ton of stuff about encounter design and players and tough spots and fleshing out things. There used to be, I don't know if it still exists, it probably does, but there was a monthly publication, Polygon, that was put out by D&D, by Wizards of the Coast, Paizo Publishing, and it was like the D&D magazine, and they'd always have cool stuff for Dungeon Masters, like Dungeon Master tips and stuff like that, and I learned a shit ton by reading those articles.
Have you read the Volos? What was it? What is it called? The Volos Guide to Monster?
I have not had a chance to read that one yet, no.
Volos Guide to Monsters is awesome. So much information about how things are ordered. I had so much fun just reading about the history of how these things worked.
It sparks the imagination, and it gives you fuel to write encounters. Oh. The monster manual is like that. You're going to get a paragraph or maybe several paragraphs if you're lucky about how a monster lives and its environment and how it clusters itself together and what kind of treasure it might have, and that's good stuff. But all the different campaign settings and source books sometimes flesh out those things. Those types of books are really great. It's better than just combing it for feats and superpowers.
So do you have any tips for maybe enhancing your games at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got two tools that I really like to use. One is I have a wireless Sonos speaker system throughout my entire house. So I can pump in some awesome background music or some screams or some ambiance, like, we've done thunder and lightning or ocean waves or that sort of thing. And, they can even hear it when they're going to the bathroom, taking a break.
Yeah, dude, you're right. I think music is a surprisingly important part of a game. It can really fill in those spaces where there's nothing but silence for a little bit as somebody's fixing something or whatnot. But I know that you're a big fan of lighting too.
Absolutely. If you want to go totally just absolutely ridiculous, you can do a bunch of the Philips Hue lights and download an app like Philips Hue Play. And you can get like some candlelight going, or maybe if like that's not good enough, you want to actually get some like torchlight going.
Yep.
Or maybe you got some fireworks happening or something like that. You could queue up some different colored fireworks happening.
It just changes. It changes the entire environment. That is very true. I remember one time you walked into my house. And the sessions before, I had that one light bulb that looks like a torch.
Yeah, that thing is so cool.
And you said, "Hey, can you turn on that lamp?" it's like, oh, okay. Well, it's Fred. He likes his lights.
No, it was a good. It was totally a good supplement to what we were doing at the time, and just because you don't have a ridiculously expensive light system doesn't mean that you can't, for example, get some like LED candles going.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Or out of your laptop speakers, which is something that you typically do a lot, and that works just as well. So you don't have to go totally over the top and bougie like me, but you can help create some of that ambiance by using some lighting, some music. Highly recommend picking up playlists off of Spotify or YouTube for ambient sound effects. They've got like taverns, thunderstorms, dockside, and it changes the whole ambiance of the table and really adds something to the experience, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people talking in the background, things like that. It can really make a tavern scene feel like a tavern scene.
Immersive. Mm-hmm.
Immersive.
Makes things a lot more immersive. That's what I got on that.
And battle music. I love
super good. And like extensive library to draw from yes. All of the great video games that you've played.
Oh my goodness. Even
video games that you wouldn't even think that you could throw in from and movie soundtracks. One of my favorite ones to use is The Mummy, like from
really?
Like the Brendan Fraser, The Mummy. Like it's got some really dark dungeon kind of crawly stuff, or stuff from 80s movies like Aliens or Terminator. Like it just it evokes the right sort of atmosphere. It's got that ambient quality.
I always liked The Witcher 3.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, like I don't know what you're saying. Yeah, Skyrim. Skyrim is great. I mean, like, just because like you can loop Skyrim over and over and over, and it sounds pretty good the entire way through. But
Baldur's Gate ain't bad either, and sometimes it's fun.
That's a solid one too.
Oh, that one's great too. Yes, it's fun too to find some more obscure ones, and then you'll play them, and then your players will come back later and be like, "Oh, I know where you got that from," and it's like an Easter egg kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, you caught me. It's like,
you got me.
Oh well. One thing that always intimidated me about being a GM was the sheer amount of spells. I remember thinking, like, I have to learn all these by heart. I need to do this. I need to do that.
What is the highest level characters that you really typically get in your D&D party? Where do you start and where do you usually end your campaigns at? 7? 9?
Yeah.
At level 7, you've got access to 4th level spells. At level 9, you've got access to 5th level spells.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's level 5 is where things start getting
Yeah.
a little wacky. They start getting a little wild. They start, disintegrate and stuff comes in and teleport, and you start growing beyond the DM's ability to instantly kind of corral and wrangle, because like you got a 9th level spellcaster walking around. He can literally change the world.
Oh yeah, seriously. You throw out a wish spell. Oh gosh, there you go.
Yeah, levels 8 and 9, limited wish, great wish, that sort of thing. But if you're going by how I do things, which is 14 levels of an appropriate challenge to get a level, it's going to take a long time to get there. And then it's plenty of time for after your D&D session to have a conversation with your spellcasters. Be like, so like, yeah, I know you got pass wall.
Yeah. like, hey, please don't destroy everything. Yeah.
Kinda, and if you're having an adult conversation with somebody, like they're gonna 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, yeah, not a problem. Yeah. Or you could have magical effects. Then, if all else fails, the dimensional effects that interfere with spellcasting, null magic zones, wild magic zones. The book gives you all sorts of ammunition for how to craft your way around clever magic spellcasters. But ultimately, you want to rein that instinct in as a DM. Coming back to that word again, agency. You don't want to remove player agency. That's something that's really important. It's half the reason they're playing. They want to be a super powerful character. They want to have spells and abilities and unique talents and be larger than life. It's a fantasy. They're there to live out a fantasy, and you don't want to neuter that or diminish that experience by eliminating their ability to exercise their creativity and flex their muscles.
I think it's a balance of both. Talking, expectations, letting people know what's going on and getting that feedback, and letting them still be as strong and powerful as they can be. Really, these
are great conversations to have at a zero game.
Zero game, yeah. With you.
Zero game is a great concept. It's like, where it's a character generation game. It's time to ask questions. It's about asking what kind of things they want to experience. It sets the tone for the campaign. That zero game. And then post game is always really important too. I love doing after drink. That's one of my favorite things. After the game's over, we have put the kids to bed. We have a few drinks. We have some laughs. We talk about this was cool.
Right word, really. After drink. So that's it.
Absolutely. And it also lowers the tension and the perceived tension between the DM or the characters on other characters, and you can just talk frankly as people and get an idea of where things are at.
You're talking tension. One big thing with tension with the GM is the GMs being against the players. Man, that just it's you are against yourself. You're trying to, you are on the side of the players. Like, these players, they are like, you want them to succeed and you want them to be strong, but you want them to be challenged. So
absolutely,
that is the difference.
And they want to be challenged.
Yeah, there you go. It's about the challenge, right? You're not trying to win. You're trying to challenge.
So, a stupid book that I read, which is also a wonderful book that I highly recommend if anybody, you guys can find it or find a PDF or an old copy somewhere at a used bookstore, is The Munchkin Master's Guide. It is a Monty cookbook, I believe. Okay. It's this little, like, size of a comic book, essentially, maybe like not even 100 pages, but it kind of lampoons some DM tropes and some just silly shit that typically always happens. But one of the things that is making me think of it was it talked about different dungeon master types.
Oh no.
Well, they're all Monties.
Okay.
So you've got the Monty Hall DM. The Monty Hall DM is like, what's behind that curtain? It's a new car. Or if you pick between door number 1 and door number 2, there's both prizes, and they're chucking money and treasure and loot and just constantly inundating their players with stuff,
Yeah.
fun goodies, and it's always great getting loot. And I don't think enough DMs give enough loot, especially trivial loot. Stuff that's like art objects and things that they'd have a hard time selling, and things they have to decide, well, what am I going to actually carry back to the loot wagon? Like making those decisions or leaving the dungeon to come back for later. Those are good, but like a Monty Hall DM overcompensates by giving their players too much. A Monte Carlo DM is wherever the dice fall, it's wherever the dice fall. They will never fudge a roll. They will never not leave things to chance. They'll always roll that random encounter table. It doesn't matter if they roll the Tarrasque and the characters are 6th level. They're gonna fight a Tarrasque at level 6.
Yeah.
It's always to the luck of chance. And then last but not least, the Monte Cristo DM. The Monte Cristo is its players versus Dungeon Master, and the Dungeon Master always wins. They're on a power trip. They're there to punish their players. They're there to make them feel small and them feel big. All three of these types are toxic.
Yeah.
And it's something to avoid. But I've seen them all. I've played with them all.
That's why I think it's important that people keep striving to become better, because it's okay if you've had these problems before. And it's okay if you've gotten frustrated and you're like, oh man, I just can't get these guys down, or something like that. It's about getting better every time you play, so that you can make a better game for everybody else, have a good time yourself, have a good time for everyone else. And it's about moving forward and getting better so you can enjoy yourself and have your friends enjoy themselves.
Yeah, and you are directing a collaborative experience, okay? That is a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation to put on yourself. And when things go sideways, it might not necessarily be your fault, but always be the first to point the finger at yourself and not your players. It's like, what could you have done a little bit better in that circumstance? Even if I need to coach my players a little bit more. Maybe I need to have a side-by-side or a one-on-one with them and let them know, like, hey, this isn't working, but don't be quick to toss your people when you can make adjustments on yourself.
There you go. Well, what area do you struggle in? Fred, you've been doing this for years, and I know you're still moving on. You're still getting the hang of things, trying new things out.
I'm not. I'm perfect in every way.
Of course you are. Yes, what am I
thinking? 27 years, James. I have achieved the height and pinnacle of perfection in dungeon mastering. No problems here. Next question.
Where do you think you could do better?
You've really challenged me with the miniatures thing. I am so focused on mind's eye theater and doing the theater of the mind, essentially, where you picture things on the table as opposed to actually look at them. Visual aids are so much fun. And picking out your tokens and the service that you're providing right now is absolutely brilliant, where you can choose scenery and characters and 3D print them. This was not a luxury that I had when I was coming up. It was maybe you might find a metal miniature that might look like your character. Maybe you should kind of base your character off of something that you bought as opposed to trying to find something to fit you. We're not living in that world anymore.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Thank you.
It's super awesome. But in order for me to run larger games, theater of the mind was absolutely necessary, because miniatures can slow things down. If you're not skillful in using them and you don't understand all of the terrain and positioning effects, and at least in 3.5, things were a lot more complicated. 5th edition has streamlined it to a point where it's almost created sort of a golden age for using miniatures and props and set pieces, because you don't have to crunch nearly as many numbers as the DM when you're having this stuff in.
Especially compared to 4.
I don't want to talk about 4th edition.
We're not going to talk about 4th edition. even still, I mean, with the miniatures, like, you still have to be careful because you don't want it to... What's that?
Having flashbacks about 4th edition.
No. But you don't want to take away from the story with it. You want to add to the story with it, right? It's a way to show what's going on. It's not a way to force your vision on other people.
No, and ultimately it's a great tool. It's a great tool in the tool bag. I think it's great. It's added a lot to your campaigns and help bring me in kind of into the action and visualizing things a bit better. If I talk about a 50-foot bridge, well, what's it made out of? What does it kind of look like? What environment is it in? As opposed to James plopping the bridge on the table, it's like, oh, I know what I'm looking at. I know how I'm going to approach it.
There's all the archers. There you go. Yeah. That's back. Yeah, that was. Oh man. Yeah, that was back whenever I first started designing the miniatures, and I made them out of twine and popsicle sticks.
Yes. Yeah. You spent just as much time fabbing that stuff together as putting your campaign together, and it was awesome. It was totally awesome.
Honestly, I had so much fun doing it. That's really what it's about. It's just like, I thought it would add to my game. I personally thought it did.
Absolutely.
I was enjoying myself, and that's what it's all about, really. Fred, I think you are a great DM. I really appreciate you talking to me about all this stuff, and I know we got to wrap it up here soon because it's been an hour and a half. So.
Oh, I appreciate it. No, I appreciate you saying so, and I've had a good time, and I hope whoever watches this can glean a little bit of my insight. But if I had any parting words really to give, it would don't be hard on yourself. Don't be hypercritical of yourself. Be fair, though. You do have some accountability in how this all shakes out, but every failure is a learning experience, just like everything else in life. If you're not failing, you're not trying, and it's more important to just get out there and do it and have those experiences, learn from them, and go forward. And the proof that you're having any kind of success, that your players show up every week. And if your players are showing up every week, they're having fun, they're laughing, talking about their character, falling in love with the characters that they make. Mm-hmm. That's how you quantify your success. It's not how you told your story or any of the other little nuances and details. It's what was the quality of the experience that you created together.
That's exactly it, man. All about the experience. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
Anytime.
Thanks for watching. I hope you gleaned some good information out of this. I know I did, and it was good just to talk to Fred for a little bit. I have more GM interviews lined up. I can't wait to share with you what I am learning and what you can find out about how to be a better GM and how to have a good time with the friends that you're bringing to the table. Until next time.